Hello, everybody. Welcome to that new live stream from Kubefirst. And you know what? Something special for this one. I was supposed to do this one alone. So, I prepare Jared and John to join me on this one. But you know what? I don't need those. I have the real deal with me today. So, hey, John, Jared, how are you? How is
Doing
life?
great. Life is good. We got 2.0 just about ready to hit production, and we're excited to show three of our favorite technologies today.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's got a nice sunny day today. Nothing to complain about at all.
So, like, that was probably the worst introduction about both of you, like, meaning nobody knows much more about you, but like, they created Kubefirst. So, I think it's worth it, like, a nice intro. So, John and Jared, founder of Kubefirst, they created the first version and they started to build a team and make it happen. So, yeah, super excited to be here. My name is Frederick Harper, and I'm a developer advocate at Kubefirst. So, I have to work with those two guys and other amazing people. So, that's again a real pleasure to be here. So, that was a kind of like short intro. I like that. So let's jump right to uh, the meat and the main topic. So as John said, today we're gonna talk about like three or of our favorite technologies, and we call this internally and now externally because that was the title of the live stream. We called this the Kubefirst Trifecta, and we're talking about NGINX Ingress Controller, cert-manager, and external DNS. And as you will see in that live stream, those are at the center of Kubefirst. It really makes your life easier. We do this for you, and it is basically what we do at Kubefirst. We make things work together so you don't have to. So today, usual kind of like live stream that we do, quick intro about Kubefirst for those of you that do not know the platform and that are new to our platform. Really quick. It's not about doing a full long product pitch about Kubefirst because I believe that the best way to learn about Kubefirst is to use it. So we'll show you how to do that right after. But today, the main topic, already told you, and we're tech people, so we're going to demo some stuff. We're going to show you how it's working. So it's not just going to be blah blah blah. We're going to demo things. It's a live stream for like developers, GitOps people, DevOps people, everybody loving technology. So let's start with a topic that is dear to me, Kubefirst. So what is Kubefirst? When you want to deploy a cluster, when you want to use Kubernetes, there's two kind of people. There are people that say like, hey, it's easy. And there are people that are probably a little more sane and say like, hey, it's not that easy. And I am that kind of person. I mean, deploying Kubernetes, it's not that complicated. It's like everything you need to make work after that is the more complicated. And this is where Kubefirst jump in. So we really try to tackle the complexity so it's easy for you after to use a Kubernetes cluster. And I don't know what John just wrote, but like he definitely have the kind of keyboards that make so much sound when you type on it. So much noise.
It didn't happen.
Mechanical keyboard for the win. But yeah, wonderful in a live stream. So for those of you that just joined us, this is the kind of live stream we do. Really laid back. We just like to talk about technology. But like, if I want to go back to the main topic of that specific moment, Kubefirst, it's an instant GitHub platforms. It's open source. It's free. You can go to GitHub, you can see how we did it. You can even help us by submitting issues, by creating PR if you are much inclined to like contribute in different ways, fixing bugs, adding features. And what Kubefirst does, we deploy Kubernetes cluster for you, but in fast and easy way. And on top of that, it's not just about deploying Kubernetes. It's really to empower you with the tools that we think you need to be successful when it comes to running a cluster. So those technology are all cloud native technology. We're talking about HashiCorp Vault. We're talking about Argo CD, Argo workflows. We're talking about Terraform, Atlantis, and all those technologies put together. They work immediately. And this is probably the power of the platform. So you can deploy a cluster with all the technologies you need to right away being able to deploy your own application. And you know what? We even deploy you a demo application called Metaphor so you can already see how it's working. But the power of that is that we define, or we kind of like default to some application that we think you need to have on your cluster to be successful. But it's GitOps. So you have that beautiful repository called GitOps where all the magic happen. And you know what? It's the power of the entire platform, but it's yours. So once it's deployed, once you use Kubefirst to deploy your, create a new cluster, that you can do locally, or you can do on AWS using both. In both cases, you can use GitHub or GitLab SaaS, both SaaS offering from the company. And on top of that, with release 2.0, the next release we're going to release really soon, you're going to be also able to do this on Civo. But once your cluster is deployed, GitOps reports on your own terms, so you can do whatever you want with it. So that's kind of like the high-level introduction about Kubefirst. If you want to try it, you can go on GitHub and you go on github.com/kubefirst/kubefirst, because yes, the organization is the same name as the product. I don't know why I like to highlight that all the time. It's not even picking on Jared and John. I just like it. Like, you know, it's simple, minimalist, right to the point. We love the name, so we use it twice. On that note, I'm mostly done talking. Let's give the mic to someone who likes to talk as much as me, if not more, which is quite a statement. John, you have the mic. Introduce us, educate us to the Kubefirst Trifecta, cert-manager, DNS, external-dns, and NGINX.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you. So the Trifecta is it's just an inside project term that we use to describe these three great technologies of cert-manager, external-dns, and ingress-nginx. When you have a new Kubernetes cluster and you're going to host a whole bunch of applications in it, there are certain core fundamental pieces of tech that are very valuable to have in that cluster as early as possible. So ingress-nginx, the one on the bottom here, and just to highlight, there are a handful of different nginx projects. NGINX is a for-profit company, but they have open source projects. There is also a project called ingress-nginx, hyphenated ingress-nginx, and that has been donated to the CNCF, and that's the version of nginx that we're going to be talking about in this live stream. Ingress-nginx is a great proven on the nginx reverse proxy that we all have known and loved for over a decade. But it has an Ingress technology for Kubernetes that works very, very well, and has been proven throughout the Kubernetes community for half a decade easy. The annotations that are available to you to be able to control the rules of your Ingress, the rules of what comes into your cluster, are easy to define on a service by service basis. And we love Ingress-nginx. There are a lot of great Ingress controllers, API gateways in the Kubernetes ecosystem, but of them all, I think Ingress-nginx is the single most popular one. When you go to any new application, it often comes with Ingress directions specifically for Ingress-nginx. So for an introductory level or for a production grade Ingress controller, NGINX fits the bill for just about everybody. Universally agreed is a really great piece of tech. Thanks there, Fred. So cert-manager is a different piece of technology. Its responsibility is to establish TLS certs for you. Now, when you have an application, when you have a service running in your cluster and you want to expose it to the world, you expose it to the world using a technology like ingress-nginx. However, you have to make sure that the communication is secured. And to do that, you have to establish a TLS certificate. You want to have a TLS certificate that's trusted by most browsers. In order to do that, we're going to show you how we use cert-manager, leveraging a Let's Encrypt production cluster issuer to establish short-lived, easily rotatable, automatically renewing, automatically provisioning certificates on a service-by-service basis with a small blast radius. Lastly, we have the external DNS technology. External DNS solves the third and last piece of making an application available outside the cluster, which is that if you're going to use ingress-nginx to establish accessibility to the service, what ingress-nginx is going to do is create a load balancer in your cloud. And it's your responsibility to have a DNS record that maps that load balancer to your hostname running in your cluster so that somebody can just look up your application by its hostname and it'll route to the correct load balancer that's associated with ingress-nginx. So we're going to show a little bit of that with the automatic mapping of a brand new host. We're going to have it automatically provisioning certs, and we're going to make it accessible to the internet in real time here. So Jared's going to walk us through a little bit of demonstration today. Jared, you ready to rock and roll and show us some technology?
Yeah, I think so.
And just before you join, if you have any question during the live stream about what we are demoing right now, please ask your question. I'm going to monitor the comments and try to answer, or someone else will be able on that live stream to answer. And same thing, if you want us to cover a specific topic on a next live stream, please let us know. So we have like plenties of ideas, but the goal is not just to hear ourselves talking. Like we want to create content that is useful for everybody. And so far, people are quite happy with our live stream and the recording that is available after on our YouTube channel. So please go there and like the YouTube channel. But like in the meantime, if you have any idea of specific topics around cloud native, Kubernetes, or things that are specific to Kubefirst, let us know. We don't pretend that we know everything, but I guess to the bunch of us, there is some kind of like a good knowledge drop that we can do. So let us know. I'm going to be able to cover any topic of interest if we're able to. So,
yeah, and just to add on to that, even if maybe it's not a topic that you'd like us to cover, but a tool you would like us to add to the Kubefirst platform, that would be a fun live stream to do too. If you just want to see how they get something up and running on the platform, just let us know.
That is a good thing. And, you know, like the best way to do that is to join our Slack community and ask in the channel, like say, hey, you know what, I want to use Kubefirst, but would like to see how to install tool X. Let us know. So either we're going to help you directly or like as Jared said, that will be a pretty good live stream to do too. So open to suggestion. Please bring them on.
Yeah.
All right. So what we're looking at here on Jared's screen, just to reality calibrate everybody, Kubefirst installs to a bunch of different clouds. The cloud that we're going to be demoing on today is a preview of our 2.0 release that we're getting out this week. This is a GitHub flavor of the Kubefirst platform, and it's running in the Civo cloud. This screen that we're looking at is the console screen that you get after a Kubefirst install completes, and it shows you an easy jumping point to get into all of your different applications. So Jared, if we could just kind of start out, and this entire environment that we're demoing on today, we provisioned it literally like a half hour ago. So it's everything that you see here, you'll be able to create the exact same environment. It's very much an ephemeral or easily installable ecosystem. So Jared, if you could jump into the new GitOps repository and just kind of show us in the registry what the ingress-nginx external DNS and cert-manager applications, like how they're registered, and any opinions that we have about the values implementations on the Helm charts.
Sure. Yeah. So when we deliver this GitOps repository to you at the end of an installation, that was a tongue twister for some reason. We always have this registry folder, and then it has a subfolder of whatever your cluster name is. So right now I have a cluster called kube-whatever.com. It's running on that same domain. And inside this folder, this is that registration point that has basically each one of these files represents a tool that's running in the cluster. And if we want to take a look at the external DNS one, we'll start here, but it's going to show that this is actually just pointing to an internal reference to this repository. So if I were to instead grab that path and update this to the path that it's pointing to, you would see these two resources. And we'll stick to the application YAMLs here to show the actual app. But this here is the configuration that we have for external DNS. We can see that it needs access to the Civo cloud, so we have to pass it a Civo token, and that's for it to manage DNS records in Civo cloud and give it those permissions. Cert-manager we have over here, and this follows the same pattern. It's inside this components folder of the registry kube-whatever.com cluster. Same thing, cert-manager is pretty straightforward, not too much to configure here, but there is one additional component that is not in the cert-manager application, but is needed for cert-manager to work correctly, and that would be these cluster issuers. Once you have your cert manager established in cluster, you have to tell it what is going to be getting those certificates for you. We by default ship with a production URL for Let's Encrypt so that we can get you those real TLS certs that you need, as well as a Let's Encrypt for staging, so that if you happen to be maybe toying with a new application and you don't want to burn your Let's Encrypt certs, they do limit the number of certificates you can request. I don't have the details off the top of my head, but it's like 50 weekly-ish.
Yeah, 50 weekly, and you can have 5 duplicates on a specific host per week.
Perfect. Thank you, John. So yeah, if you needed more than that and you just wanted to test and not really burn through your rate limit there, then you can use this change in annotation on your Ingress to Let's Encrypt staging instead of production, and then it won't actually count against your quota. So aside from Cert Manager, that leaves us with one last piece, ingress-nginx. So if we come over here, pretty straightforward as well. Not too much to show from the configuration. We keep it pretty vanilla. And then we have historically used the vast annotations that John was mentioning to do any application-specific configurations.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and dive into Metaphor itself. The Metaphor application is, like Fred was saying earlier in the live stream, it's a sample application that we deliver with the platform. Lets you sort of explore how GitOps CI/CD works. Metaphor comes pre-configured with integrations with ingress-nginx annotations, with external DNS annotations, with secrets that it's pulling from in HashiCorp Vault. So if you wanted to have a real example of how a real microservice works in a live production like Kubernetes environment, a Kubefirst install with the Metaphor sample application, you can't do much better than that. So we're going to be using Metaphor today to kind of show a little bit about the automation that ingress-nginx, cert-manager, and external DNS triangulate to be able to provide a very, very frictionless story for when you have a microservice that needs to become available online in a secure way. So Jared, if you could, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I don't want to pat ourselves in the back, but like, I really like the idea that we deploy Metaphor with the cluster, because, you know, it's like, okay, you deploy the cluster, bravo. Like, how is it working? Can I see the things that you connected together for me to make my life easier work? So that's pretty cool. Like, there's nothing more annoying that you want to try something new and like, yeah, in theory it's working, but like I really cannot see like a live example. And the beauty of it, like if you don't like it, you can just get rid of it. it's a demo application. So yeah, good job to us, I guess.
Yeah. We love Metaphor. Metaphor has been in different forms. It's been on the platform for years and years. We use Metaphor internally. Whenever we have something that we want to mess with, you want to mess with your GitOps CI, you want to mess with observability, you want to mess with whatever it is that you're iterating on. Having an application that works just like all your real applications, that follows a pipeline just like all your real applications, but that is not one of your developers' real applications, can be very, very valuable to your platform team, so that you can quickly iterate on whatever it is that you want to iterate in a very real way. So we'll be showing a little bit of that today when we explore these different pieces of tech. Jared, do you want to pull up Metaphor? Yeah, Metaphor staging here, and just kind of talk through the ingress that we have and the certificate that we have, and maybe some details from the Metaphor wrapper chart in the registry as well, so that we can look at like how you're overriding the values YAML implementation with the host name and stuff like that.
Sure. So let's see. I guess if we're going to go to Metaphor, I should probably go to the repository for a quick second. We currently have this Metaphor application wired up with a Helm chart. We're actually doing all the CI mechanics for publishing that chart and stuff and making it available to you. But the short of it is that we have this values YAML that is just like every default values YAML that you find across Helm charts. And that default values YAML isn't going to be good enough to be specific to our infrastructure and what we might need this Metaphor application to be. So we actually use like a wrapper charts for most of our application delivery, meaning that we're going to reference that Metaphor chart that was built for and published through the CI pipeline of the Metaphor application. But instead of using those default values or having to hard code values into those values, we can actually just have an instance of Metaphor's Helm chart that can consume overridden values. So on staging here, you can see that we have this top level key property Metaphor. That's required because Metaphor is the Helm chart that we're wrapping, and then that will produce all of these to be passed into the default values. So we want to tell it that we do want a certificate through cert-manager that's going to be for Let's Encrypt using our production cluster issuer that we were looking at a minute ago. The host name that we want to assign to this application in our cluster is Metaphor staging at our domain name, which is kubewhatever.com. We also have to tell it where that TLS certificate is going to live that cert-manager is going to request for us. And once it's ready, it's going to be living in a secret in the namespace called Metaphor TLS. And then we have to tell it to bind it to that same host name. These are more internal for the demo application, so they're not super valuable. But I guess the only other piece to mention on the wrapper chart, since there's only a couple lines outside of the ingress, is we're telling it where the image repository is for the Docker images that we're building, or the container images we're building for the Metaphor application, and how to access that registry with an image pull secret, so that Kubernetes can have the container image pulled into the environment and be usable.
Very cool. And can we see the Metaphor application itself, like in a browser?
Yeah. So if we go back to our console here, we have these short links for Metaphor. So when I click on Metaphor staging, this is going to be that same host name that we were just looking at. And so that's our link.
All right, we're up and running.
Yep, we're up and running. It shows the revision that's here in staging. We can also change this to development or production. It's going to be the same application. So nothing too fancy. Oh, you have to spell production correctly, though, for it to work the way that you want it to. So,
details.
Yeah, so that's the Metaphor application. That's the URLs that we have configured through those wrapper charts for you to be able to access the application. Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and show the world when you are leveraging these three technologies, how effortless it is to get an application listening on a new host name that's never existed in the world. Let's, Fred, do you have any recommendations for us on what we call this this host name? It'll have to be something.kubewhatever.com. That's the only requirement. So where do you want to go?
I have no idea.
All right, let's do Fred has great jokes. Kubewhatever.com. No.
I like where you're going. Yeah.
Fred has great jokes. All right. we're going to have to go back to our GitOps repository, and we're going to go make an adjustment to the wrapper chart that we have for Metaphor. So we're going to drop into components in the development folder that we have that represents all the applications that run the development namespace. If we go into the values YAML here, I'm going to make a quick adjustment. So this is development. We wanted production. Sorry, that was wrong folder, but that's okay. Values. Oop. All right. So now that we're in the production one, we're going to add an additional host. So, and you said Fred has great jokes is what we're going for here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Fred has great jokes.kubewhatever.com. So we're going to add that new line there. And then we're also going to have to add that spec to the TLS certificate for Let's Encrypt. Commit these changes and create a new branch and add new host name for Metaphor. I spelled Metaphor wrong, but at least it wasn't meat for. It was there we go. All right. And this is, as John's mentioned, an ephemeral environment. This GitHub org doesn't have anything in it except for this cluster for this demo. So I'm just going to go ahead and merge this myself without an approval on it. Obviously, you might want to get that. Your specific shop will have its own rules. So
Can't do that when Fred's around. That's crazy.
I know, right?
You know this one was coming.
So now that we've merged that, Argo CD has its 3-minute poll by default. So it's not pulling the information necessarily without us needing to potentially give it a little nudge in the right direction. For the sake of the demo, I'll always do that, give it that extra nudge. So if we refresh the Metaphor application in production now, we can see that had I just let that sit for another few minutes, Argo CD would have woken up and said, hey, I have a new spec on my Ingress. This isn't good enough. I have to go do some work. And you can see that Argo CD has recognized that we have this new host name called fredhasgreatjokes.kubewhatever.com. And it's updated everything here from that pull request. And now we just have a very short wait. But while this short wait is happening, John can talk through a little bit what's going on here.
Yeah, so there's actually 3 things that are going on all simultaneously just by the process that Jared showed us of introducing a new hostname to the TLS spec and to the Ingress hostname section of the Ingress chart wrapper. So the first thing that happens is at external-dns. So ingress-nginx, first of all, has been running in this cluster since the cluster provisioned. It's up, it's awake, it's listening, and it's configured to look at kubewhatever.com DNS zone. So it is just always going to monitor the cluster, and anytime a Ingress is needed that has class type nginx, it's going to wake up and say, hey, if you need an Ingress, I'll make sure that you have a load balancer. It goes to the cloud, it provisions a load balancer for you, and that's great. And that load balancer, if you hit that load balancer directly, it would send traffic to your app. And that's all ingress-nginx job is. And you can just trust that ingress-nginx is up and running and listening and waiting for new ingresses that it needs. Now, the second thing that it needs, unfortunately, when you create a load balancer in the cloud, it always comes with a really crummy name. It's just like a bad sequence of characters. It's terrible. And then it has some cloud domain details at the end. You don't want to use that in your production applications. So instead, what you want to do is create a DNS record that says, hey, I want to have a nice friendly name for this terrible name that the cloud gave me for my load balancer. So that's what external DNS is doing right now. Is it said, hey, I noticed you had an Ingress, and that Ingress that you have says that you need that you're trying to send traffic to Fred has jokes. Fred has great jokes. Forgive me.
Yeah, please.
Kubewhatever.com, and it's gonna check to make sure that if there's no record in your cloud zone for whatever host name you specify in your Ingress, it's going to create an A record, and it knows the load balancer and that it's Ingress-nginx that is processing that ingress information. So it binds it to that ingress-nginx load balancer DNS. That allows, or sorry, the IP addresses that are associated with the service that's associated with ingress-nginx. So that allows us to have a vanity DNS, which is great. We get to go to some nice, easy to remember domain name instead of the domain name that a load balancer gives you by default. The last piece of the equation is this piece that we're looking at on Jared's screen, which is the certificate provisioning process. This is where cert-manager comes into play. Cert-manager wakes up and says, hey, I saw an ingress had a change also, and we need a certificate so that when requests come in for fredhasgreatjokes.kubewhatever.com, we have a certificate that we can wrap those requests in TLS and reply in a secure way. And we're going to automatically, cert-manager will automatically provision a certificate using Let's Encrypt. It'll drop it in a Kubernetes secret that was specified in the YAML that Jared was looking at a moment ago, and drop it right in the Kubernetes cluster. So Jared, if you scroll to the right there to your order, can you click on that? I think it was the top. Yeah, the top one says 4 minutes ago. Here you can see that the DNS spec, it's requesting now for this one service, it needs to have a certificate that has 2 host names associated with it, because we kept the old host name as well. We could have removed the host name and just changed it. You can have as many host names as you want. And if you think about an environment where you have maybe blue-green clusters, it's very nice to be able to have a vanity DNS that represents, like, development.yourcompany.com, but to also have a development blue.yourcompany.com and a development green.yourcompany.com, so that you can isolate traffic to your 2 blue and green clusters, but whichever one is considered to be the active cluster is managed at a higher level, and you can manage the DNS that way as well. So all of these tricks are really valuable for multi-cluster scenarios. If you have to negotiate host names, if you want to have vanity DNSs to represent each one of your clusters, if you want to have a vanity DNS to provide to your end users, these 3 technologies are a super frictionless way to go. So Jared, at this point, we have the new Ingress. We've talked through cert-manager, external-dns, ingress-nginx. What's the end result?
End result is Fred Has Great Jokes does render metaphor, but for some reason metaphor is not getting its values back. So that's the end result.
All right. Well, it wouldn't be a live stream.
Yeah, that was unexpected, but that's that we got the app. Something about the app's configuration is the metaphor application needs to be adjusted. But
I think it's the name you provided that just made everything explode.
Yeah, Fred Has Great
joke,
Jokes. It was the joke. Yeah, we still hit the application, but the application didn't respond correctly. So
yeah. So just for everyone watching's edification, the metaphor application has a front end component and it has a back end component, and the front end has to communicate with the back end component in order to display what's shown on the screen there. And I guess when we changed that host name, there was something about the communication of the back end that broke. Didn't think through that whole thing for the live stream, but nevertheless, it's available.
We didn't say that we were talking about application uptime. We were talking about how to route traffic to applications here.
Nice spin, buddy. Nice spin. I like that. Hey, since we're on the screen and we've got a good host, would you mind bringing up the certificate details for this instance? Yeah. Can you just talk through the details here if you would?
Don't have too much. Basically, just this is you can click on the little lock icon in your browser. It's going to tell you what certificate is being used to serve that HTTPS traffic. Ours is using the Fred Has Great Jokes whatever com. That certificate is issued by R3 organization Let's Encrypt, and it's a certificate that they gave us to have this nice secure communication.
Right on. Yeah. So for those of you that might be installing ingress-nginx to your first ever Kubernetes cluster, the ingress-nginx will come with a self-signed cert that's called the I think it's called the ingress-nginx fake certificate or something to that effect. And if you didn't have cert-manager, you didn't have external DNS, you just had ingress-nginx, you could ingress an application just like we're showing you here, and it would serve traffic to the public internet. The problem is that it would not be trusted. So when somebody goes to that website and it's using a fake Kubernetes certificate from ingress-nginx, they're going to get a warning when they first go to your website that says, hey, we don't trust this certificate, proceed at your own risk. And you can proceed at your own risk, and generally speaking, it would be okay too. But as long as you know what the infrastructure is that you're connecting to, that's not good public information for the wild. But
yeah, easy.
Yeah, so, but you don't want that to be your experience in production. In production, you need to have a TLS certificate that is trusted by browsers. And that's why we're leveraging Let's Encrypt. Let's Encrypt has its own certificate authority. The R3 authority is what they use today. That R3 authority, when you download Chrome, when you download Firefox, when you download whatever your favorite browser is, those browsers come baked in with a set of certificate authorities that they trust. And R3 is one of those trusted authorities that all the browsers will just trust by default, which means that any certificate that's issued by that certificate authority would be trusted by anyone that's visiting a site that's using TLS that's leveraging that certificate. So that's kind of the complete story about how Let's Encrypt kind of is involved in the cert provisioning process. They're the authority that's actually issuing and provisioning the certificate. cert-manager is the operator that's watching all the ingresses and checking renewal dates and expiration dates of all the certificates that it's managing. And as soon as the certificate is ready to be renewed, it's automatically going to renew, drop it in all the right Kubernetes secrets, and it's also going to leverage whatever annotation you specify in your ingress for the cluster issuer that you want to use or the issuer that you want to use. It'll leverage that issuer to provision the certificate and give you a nice clean environment like the one Jared was showing us. So
I'm a huge fan of Let's Encrypt. Like they just made developers' life easier when they appear basically out of nowhere. I mean, like now it's easier than before to like have trusted certificate, and automate stuff. So yeah, really happy we use that technology too. And by the way, just before I leave the mic to Jared, we're using a lot of Argo CD. We're not going to go too deep in that, but like if you want to learn more about Argo CD, we've done a live stream about that topic. Go on kubefirst.io /live /live-argo CD. It's there. It's a recording of the live stream. That live stream was not as good as the other one because I was not there, but actually it was probably even better because Kelly was there. So yeah, great live stream to check if you want to learn more about Argo CD.
That's right. That's
Thanks,
right.
Fred.
And at this point, Fred, I think we've shown just about everything from a demo standpoint that we were after. Quick recap, external DNS, great engine to create and keep in sync your A records in your hosted zone with your NGINX pod. Then you have ingress-nginx, very tried and true proven technology for basically reverse proxy to your applications. And then we have cert-manager that's working in conjunction with Let's Encrypt to issue new certificates on a service-by-service basis.
That's amazing. Again, I like the simplicity and the fact that like you just deploy a cluster with Kubernetes and like everything is already working together to make my life easier, so I can concentrate on what I do best, which is like creating application. Or like when I was a full-time developer. Now I talk more than I create apps, but still, that's another story. So if you want to try Kubefirst, if you want to try exactly what we've shown you or deploy your own cluster, you can go on kubefirst.io/downloads. You have the information. It's not really download. It's more like the command you're going to do on your terminal to be able to install or CLI Kubefirst and being able to deploy right now with the latest version. You're going to be able to use AWS with GitHub. You're going to be able to use local, which use Key3D as a technology to create a local cluster. So if you want to try it, but you don't want to deploy on AWS, you can still do that with the CLI. And just because I like to tease a little bit with version 2.0 that is coming soon, we are adding Civo. And previously we were supporting GitLab, basically self-host GitLab technology, but like with 2.0, we're moving toward, actually we're completely moving toward GitLab SaaS, which was requested from our users, and we are delivering it. So on that note,
yeah, real quick, Fred, one interruption. So can you kick it back to my screen share really quick, just as a final touch on?
No, you said you're done. You're done.
That's right. There it is. Fred has great jokes. So it was supposed to work, and it did. But Christian, one of our engineers, is watching, and he was able to tell me what I messed up on my pull request. So I put forward a quick pull request, but we were able to fix it live. So there we go. Disaster recovery in place.
Good job. Thanks, Christian.
You can stop the screen share now. Yeah, thank you, Christian.
No. You need to continue talking. You want to the screen share? Talk.
All right, we're done here.
So, before you left us, that's the end of the live stream. You can go on github.com/kubefirst/kubefirst. Obviously, this is the main repo, but we have other tools that we've shown you today, like Metaphor, like the Kubefirst console. Everything is there. Everything to makes your life easier and really to make Kubefirst work together. If you want to learn how to use the platform, if you find like some difficulty when you start to use the platform, we have the docs, so you can go on docs.kubefirst.io. And we are not the kind of company where you cannot talk to people. You can talk to us. So join our Slack community, kubefirst.io/Slack. You have the links on the screen. I don't know why I repeat them. I don't know. I feel empowered when I repeat the link. So go there, join the community. What is really great is that, we share things about Kubefirst, but it's also about, just folks in techs that like to share like knowledge, but also help each other. But we have the Helping Hands channels where you can just ask a question, and there's a big chance that someone on your team is going to answer you, actually, but sometimes there's other users answering a question from other people in the community. So that is the vibe we want, like having people helping each other. So join us, come talk to us. It's the right place. If you're not sure if you have a bug with Kubefirst, you can just go on Slack, or you can create an issue on GitHub. But we're pretty sure you won't have an issue. You see how it's working well. But if you have any suggestion, come us. If you just want to share about your project you're working on that is that you're deploying on a Kubernetes cluster, it's the place to come. We just want to make friends with people. We're that friendly. And obviously a website, kubefirst.io. So please try Kubefirst. I was going to say please try Kubefirst, but I wanted to say if you try Kubefirst, please give us any feedback, good, bad, ugly one. We listen to the community. This is part of what I really love to be working at Kubefirst. So before the end, as you know it, what's the best thing about UDP jokes?
What is the best thing about UDP jokes, Fred?
I don't care if you get them. Okay, this joke you really need to understand how UDP is working. But on that note, any one last word? You said it. Fred got jokes. Actually, the internet got jokes, and I just found them and repeat them. But any one last word, Jared, John?
No, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, same here.
Thanks, everyone, and have a good rest of the day, and see you in 2 weeks for the next live stream. But hey, in the meantime, see you on Slack.